Gonna go ahead and get us started. There's nothing to report out of closed session. So we're moving on to item 6.1, public comment general. This public comment opportunity is governed by the State of California Brown Act. By definition, this is an opportunity to listen to concerns, perspectives, and differing vantage points. The board is not able, under the Brown Act, to engage in any level of conversation or discussion, but we look forward to this opportunity to listen to community input. At this time, the board will devote up to a total of 15 minutes for comments to the Board of Trustees regarding any subject not appearing as an agenda item for this meeting, but over which the board has jurisdiction. The public may ask the board to place an item related to the business of the district on a future board agenda. No action or discussion will occur at this time on such items, and individuals will be limited to a 5-minute presentation. I do have one speaker. Welcome back, Patty McCarty. And topic to be addressed is our final budget format. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patty McCart, and I am a Napa Valley College retiree and a community member. Public speaking makes me a little nervous, so I'll be reading my thoughts to you. I'm here tonight to request that the college revise the format of the final budget document. Let me explain what has led me to make this request. A few months ago,
Patty,
I read an...
I'm sorry. Can you move the mic down to you? I'm sorry.
Short.
It's going to be clear. We won't be able to tell what it says. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
A few months ago, I read a newspaper article stating that Peralta Community College District was at high risk of insolvency. The state's fiscal crisis and management assistance team reported that on a scale of 100, where anything over 40% means trouble, Peralta was excessively high at 69.9%. The report identified the following problems: lack of adherence to policies and procedures, high number of administrators, declining enrollment down to 20% since 2015, increased staff levels, creating an unsustainable budget, vacant positions and untrained staff in the finance department, poor communication resulting in a head-in-the-sand culture. Knowing that declining enrollment has become an issue for community colleges across the state, it made me wonder how Napa Valley College was faring and if any of the problems at Peralta might also be an issue at NVC. To better inform myself, I attended the final budget forum held on campus. After listening to the presentation, I realized that information that had historically been included in the final budget was no longer there. Specifically, prior year actual revenue and expenditures and the fund balance, also known as the reserve. After some research, I discovered that the change in the format began with the 2016 budget year. 2016-17, sorry. The current presentation of the final budget compares the prior year budget to the new year budget, but no actual prior year income and expense amounts are provided. So the comparison is of two plans, but does not address if the college was able to meet the goals of the prior year plan. Since the information that I was looking for was not included in the presentation, I searched both the NVC and Chancellor's Office websites. As you can see on the spreadsheet that I have provided, when comparing the budget and actuals for the last 3 years, some trends in the data emerge. For the last 3 years, income projections have exceeded actual income by a total of $3.7 million, approximately $1.5 million in 2016-17, $1.2 million in 2017-18, and $1 million in 2018-19. Salaries have been consistently under budgeted, yet the budget for 2019-20 is only $150,000 more than the actual expenditures for 2018-19. Expenditures have exceeded revenues for the last 3 years. The fund balance of 15% in 2016-17 is projected to be reduced to 8.5% by the end of 2019-20. Enrollment has declined more than 15% from the 2015-16 to 2018-19, with more than half of the decline attributed to this last year. Projected actual income and expense amounts are included in the tentative budget, which is presented in June. However, those amounts don't seem to be very meaningful as they closely mirror the budget and don't seem to reflect actual information which should be available at that point in the fiscal year. Including prior year actual income, expenditures, and fund balance information on the final budget seems to be standard practice. Solano, Santa Rosa, and Marin all include this data. In fact, Santa Rosa includes 2 prior years and Marin includes 3. Is there a reason that the Napa Valley College budget format was changed and no longer includes this information? The narrative portion of the final budget states that the NVC Board of Trustees require that the fund balance be at least 12%. As you can see, that goal has not been reached since 2016-17 and is not expected to be reached in 2019-20. As you know, the Chancellor's Office requires the fund balance to equal a minimum of 5% of expenditures. For the 2019-20 budget, that would equal approximately $2.2 million. The current fund balance is $3.8 million. Although a cushion of $1.6 million seems like a lot, it should be noted that there was a decline of $2 million over the last 2 years. I would also like to share that after I created my spreadsheet, I discovered a report on the Chancellor's Office website titled Analysis of Selected Data from the Annual Financial and Budget Report. The information in this report is very similar to and verifies my spreadsheet. I have only attached the first page, but there is additional information contained in the full report, such as data regarding FTES and the 50% law that the college may find useful. In the interest of transparency, I think it's very important that a student, college employee, community member, and especially a trustee be able to see a complete and accurate picture of the college finances at a public meeting such as the final budget forum or a Board of Trustees regular meeting. A search of other documents and websites should not be necessary to access such information. As you can see, historical actual income, expense, fund balance amounts, and FTS counts are crucial to spotting trends, favorable and unfavorable. It is my hope that the district will analyze and use this data as they move forward with important planning and budget decisions. Therefore, I'm asking the Board of Trustees to please consider revising the presentation of the final budget to include this information. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Patty. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to address the board at this time? Do not have any other speaker cards. Okay. At this point, we are going to move to our presentation. 7.1, this is an update on our student housing project. David Martin with the Martin Group and Jeff Bakirin from HPI Architects will be presenting this evening. Welcome, you guys. And
thank you. So we're here to give you an update from our efforts over the last 30 days. We've been spending time with our engineers and architects and the staff developing this plan that you'll see this evening. We're looking forward to answering your questions that you may have and getting your feedback. And then after this evening, the next step will be to then turn these plans over with your modifications included to the contractors to get the economic modeling done to hopefully be back to you next month, which is we know is going to be tight given the holidays. So there's a small chance we may need to bring it to the January meeting instead of the December meeting, but we're going to try hard to make the December meeting. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jeff Bakirin from HPI, and he's going to describe not only his firm but the plan and see if we can answer your questions. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. As you mentioned, I'm Jeff Bakirin with HPI Architecture, design director there. Been there since about 2006. Little firm history. We've been around for the last 30, 40 years now. We focus in our energy in 2 markets, specifically higher education, and specific to that, we do a lot of community college work. The majority of it is community college work. Our other sector is housing, where we do senior housing as well, and that. We currently have 2 student housing projects on a community college campuses underway right now. One of them is at OCC Community College in Southern California. That's about 820 beds, and that one's in construction right now. And we're currently wrapping up design on the student housing at Santa Rosa Junior College. That one's approximately 380 beds. Both of those projects went through DSA. So again, we're very familiar with the community colleges and the housing process that we need to go through here. So with that, I'd like to jump right into the design and walk you through where we are with this, as David mentioned. What you're seeing up on the screen right now, again, is just really preliminary conceptual plans for the housing project. Just to get you oriented here, this is the main highway, if you could see up there on the screen. That's the main highway. The retail center is actually up here, up towards the top. And then the Performing Arts Building is kind of off here and off to the left of the screen here. But really, this is that main entry drive with that turnaround circle that you come around through. So what you're seeing up here is we've divided the project into two sides. On the left side, we have what we're calling the dorm building. That's about 3 stories right there. And on the right side, these are all the apartment units over here. Okay, and then what we're looking at is surface parking for both of them. There'll be a little bit of surface parking for the dorms over here, and the majority of the parking really starts to happen up here around that turnaround. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and walk right into. Oh, and just so you know, just so you understand, this is really not representative of the actual architecture. It's not what the building's going to look like. It's really just a massing study to show you how big it is on the site. Okay. So if we go to the site plan. Again, this is Napa Valley Highway down here, Performing Arts Building. The way we've organized it, again, we have the dorm building to the left, we have the apartment building to the right. We are showing some small courtyards that are private and secured towards the back of the building here. We are also showing private courtyards off to the right where the apartment buildings are. The way you would get to this site is, or the way a pedestrian would come through here, is off of the courtyard by the Performing Arts Building. So there's actually an accessible ramp back here that you'd come down, and this is an existing pathway that comes along the back of the road here, this service road. And what we're proposing is that you can tie in either to this side towards the apartment building, or you can tie in to the dorm building through this way. And we do understand there's traffic that occurs around this that's heavily used, so we're also exploring alternatives as to how to get students safely across those roads. Okay? As I mentioned, this is the majority of the parking up here. I believe we're showing somewhere 530 additional parking stalls, somewhere in that neighborhood between the two sites. What else we show here? We are looking at some other improvements. We're looking at right now, this is where the current bus stop is. The existing little bus shelter is there, so we are leaving that in the plans for the time being. Some monument sign here as well, and we're really respecting where all those sort of the wetlands or the riparian areas are. So what you're seeing in green are those existing riparian areas. This is where that creek goes, so we're trying to stay right outside of that creek as well that passes through the site. Okay, so I'll give you a real quick run through on how this is the apartment building. Again, the plan's kind of rotated 90 degrees here. That road that goes to the traffic circle runs now horizontally down here. So the way we're doing this, you would come in to an entry court off to the bottom left over here. This is sort of that main lobby, and what we're doing is this entire building, all 4 of these buildings are controlled at one secure checkpoint here. So as you enter into this main lobby here, you would have a security desk, and then from that point you can go into wherever your unit is through corridors, all the while you're passing through some other common spaces. This entire courtyard, again, is all secure, so this whole thing can be secured off. There's a lot of different uses that you can do in here. Again, there's a lot. We're showing a large green in the middle for student use. If there's families, that we're providing for spaces for families or students that might have families in there. What we're showing in the plan, basically everything in purple right now is sort of the common areas. And I think that's one of the highlights of the design is really what we tried to do was get those common areas in the special locations where they can be visible as you're approaching the campus, as you drive into the site. So right over here where the main highway is, we've created this sort of common area. It's a study lounge. It's sort of like an open area where students can hang out. And the idea is that you can see this from the highway as you're approaching into the campus there, and you can see the activity going on in there. Everything in here that you're starting to see in sort of this, I guess it's reddish, pinkish color here, those are all 1-bedroom apartments. And we'll go into we'll show you plans as well of each unit type. And then we have 2-bedroom units. That's all this sort of dark blue area. And we have a few 3-bedroom units off to the side over here. And then this area over here this is all studio apartments, so these are sort of the smaller units over there. These 3 buildings right now are all connected by bridges, so they connect right over here, they connect up here at the top, and then they connect back in here as well. This one currently is not connected with a bridge, but that's if desired, that's something that we could also look at. But the idea is really that, if these are the studio apartments, that perhaps that's a separate little kind of island out there, and that space can be programmed differently, whether it's students if that's more the younger students, or maybe you have the more students with families might be off to this side surrounding the courtyard. We're showing right now, I believe we have laundry. We have laundry services in here. We're showing game rooms in the plan. We have various study lounges and quiet study rooms. We have mail services in here, and we have obviously elevators connecting all these buildings together. Is there anything else you want to add to that, David? Okay. So I'm going to show you real quick what those units look like. Again, it's a mix of studios, 1-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms, and 3-bedrooms. Basically, this top row up here is showing sort of the maximum bed layout, if you will. So you have a studio right here that could potentially have 2 beds in it. That studio can also be set up just to have a single bed in it if so desired. And then same thing with the 1-bedroom. This top one shows that if you want to have 2 beds into a single room with a living space and a kitchenette over here, you can do 2 beds in that. Or it can also be set up to have a single bed just for one person in there. Again, it's just a kitchenette over here. There's a bathroom. There's a living area. Same thing on the studio. Sorry, that's a little kitchenette over there and a little bathroom. And that could be set up as more of a living space. When we get to the 2-bedrooms, we have basically a bedroom off to the left and a bedroom off to the right, and then a living space in the middle with a small dining area and a kitchenette in there. Each of those bedrooms has its own bathroom off of it. And again, that could be set up in a number of ways. You can max it out and put 4 beds in this whole unit. You could put 2 beds, you could put 3 beds. It really just depends who's renting the unit and how many they want to get in there. And then we have also a 3-bedroom unit over here. Very similar. We have 1, 2, 3 bedrooms with a living space, and then a kitchenette over here, and then sort of 2 bathrooms off of each side. And these are the apartment ones. And again, they have potential for even balconies and things on this too. So, okay. Moving over to the dorm building. So this is the opposite side of the road now from where those apartments were. Again, here's the main highway. Here's the main entry drive in here and that existing turnaround. As we mentioned before, we have to look at how we're circulating back and forth to the campus across this main road in a safe way. But you would be coming in from campus over here. The main entry is actually at the center of this building right now. So again, security is really important on this. What we're doing is one secured entry point at the main lobby. You'd come in, you have a security desk, and then what we're showing here is actually a sort of a private secured patio back here that you can get out from that lobby space. On this building in particular, it's basically 2 unit types. The first unit type is more of a traditional dorm style, and that doesn't have a bathroom in it, but you can have either 1 or 2 beds in that dorm, traditional dorm. And then over here on the other side are what we're calling semi-suites, and those are basically 2 rooms that share a private bathroom, and that can be set up where you have either one bed on each side, or you can have 2 beds on each side for a total of 4. Same thing, we're looking at amenities throughout the whole building. This one's 3 stories, so what we're doing again, those sort of active lounges on the ends of this building. So this would bookend the other side of the site, and we have a 3D model that will show you how that starts to look in context. But again, really that's the idea, is that you get these sort of active spaces off to the end that you see as you come into the building. This wing being all studios, or traditional dorms, and not having their own private bathrooms, would have a common bathroom area. And that's, again, it's how it's programmed, whether it's male, female, co-ed, that's really up for discussion and up to the college how they like to see that program. But that's what we're showing here is a common bathroom and shower area over here. On the upper floors, we have communal kitchens for students to use. We have game rooms. We have quiet study lounges and very similar things to the apartment side. And again, it's limited parking. Again, we're trying to stay out of the existing riparian area where the creek is. So we were able to get, we tried to get some surface parking over here, but again, the majority of the parking is going to happen up on the apartment side. These are those two unit types. I know they're really small on the screen. I apologize, but this is the studio here. Again, it can be furnished with either 1 or 2 beds. This is the semi-suite, and this has a shared bathroom right in the middle. And again, you can have either 1 or 2 beds on each side of this semi-suite. Okay. And I think that's about it.
Let me just add, all of these floor plans that we've been using came from the Scion report. What we've done in the plan is to take the research that was done by Scion on what the demand was for each different unit type. And so we've matched the mix in the project you're seeing today falls inside the 4 corners of the Scion report. One of the reasons that's important is that when the bond underwriter gets ready to sell the bonds for the project, they need to be able to go to the buyers of the bonds and show that there is a defined demand. There's research that's done around each of those unit types. So we've stayed inside the 4 corners of the Scion report with these plans and the proposed unit mix that you see here.
And then lastly, I just wanted to pull up our 3D model of this thing, just so you can kind of get an understanding of how this is working. Again, this is that main highway here. You can see off to the left over here, this is where the Performing Arts Building is. But again, the idea really is that as you come into the site here, that we're creating a new sense of entry with the way we're putting the buildings on each side of the road. So we're showing just glass in the massing right now, but the idea is that those are those active lounges right off the edge of these buildings. There's one there, there's one here, and the main entry being to the dorms off to the left over here, and the main entry to the apartments being off this corner off of the circle over here. Again, these courtyards are all secured in here. The buildings are connected with open-air bridges. And again, this is 4 stories and 3 stories, but they're very comparable in height as you come in based on the grades. So, anything else, David?
No. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that, you were asking for
Yeah,
questions?
we'd be happy to answer
Yeah,
any
yeah.
questions if you.
Board? Beth, you ready?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple questions for you. Can you go back to the slide where you're showing, the one where you're showing what kind of apartments they are and where they're located?
This one here?
No, the one that's just the apartments.
The next
Oh,
slide
this
down.
one here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that one. I had a question. So the studio apartments you've put in building 4, and to me that seems backwards. It seems like the apartments that are set up for families should be off to the side, and those that are living in singles should be more connected to the community.
Yeah.
And it seemed backwards, and I was wondering if you could explain why that was.
Well, we've looked at both, and it's easy to flip-flop these.
Right.
So we originally put the family units out in their own
Right.
freestanding, and then we had a conversation about kids and where's the safe place for the kids,
Right.
to keep them corralled.
Right.
So we thought that this larger green space in the middle was this kind of safer place for the kids.
Right.
So we flipped it back to put the kids kind of facing
Right.
the center green space. But it's easy to put it back the other side. It kind of depends on how many of the demand you think has children.
Yeah.
And if it's larger, it probably makes more sense to have around the center courtyard. If it's smaller, it probably makes sense to have it there. But that's an easy change.
Well, while I agree we want to make sure any children that are living there are safe, I think one of the big concerns about housing here is making sure we build community.
Yes.
And we have support for those new students coming in, especially the ones that are 18 that don't quite have a handle on,
Right.
on what they're doing. And that kind of scares me, having them out, not connected.
Yeah.
And so I just want to put that out there and,
Yeah.
and have maybe everybody reconsider that.
Yeah. Okay, it's a good point. We think a lot about community building, and one of the ways you do that is create a lot of common rooms. So there's common rooms on every floor, so it's a
Okay.
chance to connect.
Even in building 4, because I don't see a common room in building 4.
Not in building 4.
Right, and those are where all your single ones are, right? Those are where all your, so
Yeah,
you
but-
have
but-
people living on their own, and there's no common room in that
But
building.
the common rooms in building 1 are available to
Right.
everyone, in the complex.
But my experience is, if I'm living in my own
Building?
spot right there, I'm not going anywhere.
Okay.
That's just me.
So would you like
know.
to see common rooms on the end of building 4?
I'd like to see something for,
Okay.
if we're going to keep those students isolated like that, they need something.
Okay.
In their own building.
Okay.
That's just
Good.
for me.
Good
And then
feedback.
can you go to the previous slide one over? And this is just a logistical question I had for you. So you have the paths that are going from the Performing Arts Center. And I'm just wondering if your design includes lighting for those paths, and
Well, there-
how, for safety reasons, how students would get to and from campus at night when it's dark, and whether that's part of what you are putting together.
Yeah, currently it's lit. The existing path is lit. And so our connection is a short connection. It's easy to light for sure. Yeah.
And will that be part of your overall plan then?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, the biggest challenge we have right now, we haven't quite figured it out. Because there's a gate on that drive going down, there's not much
Right.
traffic on that. So it's
Right.
pretty easy to think about crossing on the
Yeah.
other side of that gate.
And that's what scares me. There's not much traffic over there. So if it's 8 o'clock at night and I'm walking by myself from campus, it might be, oh, great, there's no traffic, but there's no traffic.
Right, yeah, good point.
So,
Well, it certainly needs to be well lit, for
Right.
sure.
Right,
And
okay.
for lots of reasons. So the other crossing, we're still scratching our heads over is how we
Right.
get
Is there-
from the
yeah,
dorm
yeah.
across. And there's a lot of systems in place of being able to push a button and lights come on and stops traffic and allows you to cross.
Right.
And where you put it matters, the distance away from the traffic circle. So we're still trying to figure that piece out.
Okay.
But,
Oh, just build a bridge. It's really easy. Just build a bridge. Not a problem. Just add that to the numbers. No. Okay.
One of the things we didn't mention, kind of funny, one of the things we talked to staff about is we originally, right here, had the idea of a community garden, and we decided that maybe it was actually better here. It's just another place to have community.
Right.
And so we have some extra land to be able to do something like that
Okay.
there. One of the other things we're thinking about is how do you get this population easy access to the nearby retail.
Right.
And so right now there's a sidewalk here, and you could actually on this side, so you have to cross over and down and then cross back over.
Right.
So there's an existing way to get there now, but it's you're walking beside a freeway. So one of the so you can see the sidewalk is here.
Right.
One of the things we're thinking about is right now there's an existing path, as you know, that goes down into the flats here, and there's a three-way intersection here to the retail. So one of the things we're thinking about is a way to connect an additional lighted path here for both bikes and pedestrians, and this is this green space is really hard to bridge because the wider it is, and with handicap requirements, it gets harder. This is going to be a little easier to bridge, that we could get over and get to an intersection where there's a lighted intersection for pedestrian crossing. So we're studying this pedestrian connection in addition to the one that's already there, so that at least leaves a couple of options to get to the retail. One of the things we want to do here is be very bike friendly. And so that would be an easy, bike trip over to the retail. And of course, this connection down to all the recreation facilities here are convenient as well. So what's nice about this location is you are close to retail, you are close to recreational facilities, and we just got to be sure we get all the connections done properly and well lit and handicap accessible and all of that.
Okay, thank you.
On that point about the bridge to Gasser, who, I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Who would run with those expenses? Is that part of the county, the city, and ours, or?
Here?
Yeah.
It would, well, we don't know of any other funding other than it would become a project expense. So one of the next phase of this, if all of you believe we're going in the right direction with the plans to start pricing all this out and then running it through the financing model, which will tell us what rents will be. And we'll have, we'll all have the ability to look at that and say, you know, we can afford that bridge or not. So we can either make it part of the project cost or pull the bridge out and have lower rents. So there'll be a lot of that discussion that will go on in this larger group once we have the financial model in front of us.
Okay. And speaking of bridges, I think a slide, the very end, where you have the completed, a picture of the completed buildings at the very end.
This one?
There's a close-up of,
Oh, the 3D model? Sure.
3D,
Yeah.
yeah. You're talking about the bridges between the apartment buildings here?
correct.
Yes.
Do we really need, how many are there, 3 or 4?
There's one at every level. So
Do we really need them? Can,
Are you talking about the
yeah, the crosswalks or the
Which
bridges,
one?
yeah.
these bridges? Right.
You're just thinking you
Could we have just one and connecting stairs going to the one
Well,
that's going to
the-
cross over,
Well,
or?
here's the issue. One of the reasons for having these bridges is it saves on having an elevator in every building.
I see,
So it's
okay.
more cost efficient to have bridges than it is to have elevators in every building. So this design meets all the handicap requirements and the elevators, and it's more cost effective that way. So if you didn't have a bridge on one floor, you'd have to add another elevator to the building.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So
Yes, it
it's
does, thank you.
That actually makes me think that having the family stuff at the front makes more sense, because otherwise you've got mom, coming in from the really far away parking lot with all of the groceries, and you gotta take the kids down the hallway screaming and yelling and doing.
I totally agree, but we've got to stay focused on what's the intent.
Yeah.
What's the intention of the housing? It's to support our students, and how do we support our students with housing? One of the things that we had talked about was we need to build community, and housing can support their academic life. And I think you make a really good point, but when you go back to, we're doing this for the student, how do we balance that? Yeah, I don't know.
right now, just to point out, the elevators, we have one in the front central location, and then we have one in this location that could service both of these buildings, and then one here for the, building 4. So those are the 3, and elevators could be moved around in different locations, but those are the 3 we have now, 1, 2, and then 3. And then this one creates almost, if you will, this is common room here was also for building, not only for building 1, but for building 3. And then we have these common rooms, which would work well for building 1 and building 2, because that's a short connection. And then we take your point about the common room on building 4. We can certainly add that back.
David, can you just discuss, it's kind of really the Scion piece, but, why dorms and apartments, right? Just, our
Right.
thought process.
Well, what Scion did is, as you know, they took a menu of unit types, from pure dorm rooms to semi-suites to studio apartments, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. And in their survey, they asked who was interested in what type of room, and gathered that data. And so we know from the students that were surveyed, we have from the Scion report, who was interested in what type. And so we have a percentage breakdown of those, and how many people were interested in each type. So this plan reflects what was the conclusion of that survey by unit type and in total demand. So again, to be able to sell these bonds to the buyers of the bonds, you have to show a research report that shows what the demand was and by what type, and so sign report does that, and our plan needs to conform to that report, which it does. So the way the process will work is, we'll come back to you with the financial models, and we'll get some feedback from the bond underwriters. And once we get the green light from you to go forward, we'll finish the plans, and then the bonds will be sold, and the project will be funded, and, off we go.
And I do recall during the presentation that the Scion Group did, they did mention that going above 3 floors, going to a 4th floor, would be a different type of permit, building permit. No?
No, it's the same wood frame construction up to 4 stories. So, and actually up to 5 stories. So you have to get above 5 stories to be able, and then you just would trigger a different type of construction at the base of the building. But this is the same 1 to 4 stories is all the same type of construction.
Okay.
Trustee Baldini.
Yes, good evening, and thanks very much. I'm thinking of kind of Park Merced or kind of Soviet-style architecture on this. Could you, this is just a preliminary draft, as
Yeah.
I understand, so design features and other elements will be forthcoming.
Yes.
Do we have any, I appreciated your 3D view. Is there a view from, say, across the, from, say, 29 North, what this college looked like, with the PAC very prominent on that hill? Do we have any viewpoint from that side? What it might appear?
Well,
From where on this side?
no, he meant
Over here.
over here, so you can turn this way.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
So what's missing is the PAC and how it fits in with the other,
well, so one of the, so you ask about architecture.
as
Yeah.
we talked about modular,
Let me show you another project that we finished recently. It won an award. It's a LEED Platinum project, and it's a modern vocabulary. It's this housing. This was actually built in a modular plant, and I just took this and showed it to the staff as, is this an acceptable direction, as we still haven't, put architecture on these buildings yet. But the idea was, because the Performing Arts Center is going to be the predominant other architecture that you see as you come in. It's, it's the significant piece. It's very modern in design. So, this building shouldn't fight with that. It should be, and most of the architecture on the campus here is more of a modern vocabulary, and some different, takes on modern, but, over the decades. But it's still, it's not the Spanish tile roof, stucco alternative. So this is just another project that we did, I'm really happy with, and it's won a lot of awards, and we just showed this to staff as, is this going in the right direction or not? So I would be happy to take feedback from you. This is, again, not this project, it's another project, but just the direction.
well, this is a bit more illuminating. I appreciate that as far as the potential for.
The potential,
for
yeah.
what you're,
Right.
For
But-
what you're displaying, and I thank you for that. The, and then if you go back to there you go, that's a nice,
Yeah, and this has bridges between the buildings as well, and, again, 4 stories, and you can see the bridges across. And if you have any lower buildings, go show the common buildings in the middle. We actually have planted the roofs of those buildings, so when you actually look down from above, you see.
outstanding. Yes.
Yeah, so, and this has a pool, but we wouldn't have a pool or, but you'd have a courtyard in between that you could program.
And on your other, and I'd like to go back to the traffic, the overhead,
Yes?
and given that the 221 Magnolia intersection, just as a quick opinion, that left turn going into the dorms would probably be extremely busy. And we also have, Vine Transit coming through there. Would there be a potential for a bus turnout or as somewhere to pull in and service? And I'd also be interested in your other project. Is that Orange Coast Community College or
Orange County.
or Orange County? The usage of Lyft, Uber, and so on and so forth for the student population. Do you need as much parking? Is parking as important? And then,
Yeah,
Thank
so at Orange Coast College, we're parking about 0.5 per bed, and that's the parking that we provided there. At Orange Coast, bicycles are really big, so we created a lot of space for bicycle storage, secured bike lockers and whatnot. Same thing at Santa Rosa. There's a heavy bicycle population there, so that's what they're really trying to encourage. They're really moving towards a lot of sustainable features, and they're actually considering providing incentive for students to not bring their cars that are going to be living at the units. That's one thing that they're working through right now. But we did provide I think we're about 0.6 at Santa Rosa in terms of parking.
And our ratio here?
Our ratio here, we're working right now with the city standards on this project, and what they are looking for is actually they're looking for one parking spot per sleeping unit. So it's not really per bed, but it's per bedroom. And so we're with the 534, we're well over that requirement there.
So in essence, right now, we're about twice Santa Rosa and
Right.
Orange Coast. But we are inside the requirements for the city. So we also have to consider the city here in the process, because we need their approval. So in other projects that we built, we're under construction right now. One at UC Berkeley, we have no parking. So the range, it's a wide range, kind of depending on where you are. But I think what we heard in some of our prior meetings is we didn't want to assume that any of the existing parking was available for here. So we were trying to, we got some pushback on that somewhere along the way. I can't remember where and now. But so we tried to park this to support itself, which is what's in the plan now.
and as far as future solar, would you see that over the parking lots on top of the units and so on and so forth?
Yeah,
or what-
the buildings are easily available for solar panels on the roofs of the buildings. In this modern vocabulary, you get flatter roofs to put solar on.
Can I do that, David? Yeah, in fact, actually, at Santa Rosa Junior College, they have solar canopies over their parking. And in fact, we've found it to be a little bit more cost-effective of a solution than trying to put it on top of the buildings. A lot of times you need to maintain some of that space on top of the building for mechanical equipment. The nice thing about this site is that the parking, where we're showing the parking, this is all north-south oriented, south-facing, so you could potentially look at solar canopies over parking here to shade the cars, but that's an ideal, it's an ideal location, and it's set up just right for that, if that's an
And
interest.
if I may, the parking area, is that within a secured, is there a security fence around that, particularly that garden and where that footbridge comes into the property, or is that?
It
just
certainly
open?
can. It certainly can be. Yeah, it can be secure.
All right. And then just as an offering, since you do have, we're bounded by state highways, 121 and 221 right there, I would have to think there would be some sort of state funds available for some pedestrian overpass, and we still have the First Street City of Napa Bridge sitting in the yard that could probably be assembled. Our own STEM program welding could build a bridge
There you
over
go.
that thing. So I don't think that's a problem. Yes. Yeah, final, yes. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just have a couple of comments, maybe questions about more the circulation and kind of the connection to the retail area. Where you show that number 5 there, And you mentioned that there's a lot of riparian areas, and maybe it's a little wider there, or maybe a little more problematic for a bridge. But I wonder, really, would that be a problem? I mean, I know it looks green, but all the pictures we've seen of that area underneath those trees, it's all dry. But wondering whether that's really more cost-effective to take possibly pedestrians and bicycles all the way down that path that now I've lost in this view, through that field, you know, to, as you were pointing out earlier.
Right.
Instead of trying to come across right where
Right here,
you're
right.
at, you're right, which to me seems a more logical connection. It's easier for the development, and it kind of creates a straight path into the heart of campus.
Right.
Through there, that I think could be a lot more aesthetic and just pull in the community, you know, kind of back and forth across there.
Right.
Than having to go down and across that field.
I agree. That's a much better connection point. Here's the issue is you either have to go through or over. And if you go through, we have all the environmental issues. If you go over, you have to go over at a handicap ramp, 2% grade. So given the height, the length of that ramp on both sides gets to be very long. We can lay it out and cost it, but it appears, given the height here, that we just don't have enough distance on the other side if we had to go over to get back down to grade again, if we hurdled the, now, could we convince our environmental community that we could shorten that distance? And maybe. So this could possibly be a later, later phase, or we can try to bear down and study it more now. But that would be the best place to cross if we could figure out the logistics of getting across there, and given our handicap requirements, that's going to be quite a ramp.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the issue.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Just, you mentioned the environmental community. I was wondering, I mean, in that one illustration that you showed with the living roofs, is that something that is easily incorporated, or does that greatly increase the cost on the buildings?
Well, there is some cost to it, but it's, if you're familiar with LEED ratings on buildings, so, you can get different standards. We shoot for platinum LEED as we can, and so we get different credits for different elements. So like the solar, is helpful. The green roofs are helpful. Those are common buildings in the middle, and as opposed to the roof of the residential, so they have less equipment on the roof because they're one story, and it gave us that ability to use green roofs. So if we have those smaller buildings in our common areas, we would suggest doing something like that, which is, helpful for your LEED points.
I would say, David, while you're on this one, we had chatted about balconies or no balconies.
Right.
And you might address our current thinking on that?
The current thinking is no balconies, because it will be safer than balconies. And so this project has more adults. This is not a student housing project, so we added the balconies. So there'll probably be no balconies. We'll have some architectural detail on the outside of the buildings that'll substitute for that. So, but it will not be balconies as you see in this rendering or photo.
I just have one comment and then a question. First, I wanted to agree with Trustee Baldini about that left turn. I think that would be, particularly at certain times of day, it could create, did that just turn off? Okay, no. But could create a real problem with the light there and traffic backing up and people coming in. And so you might look at whether it'd be possible to swing around the roundabout
Go
and
around
come
the
back.
roundabout, yeah, okay.
That would maybe make more sense.
Okay.
The other thing, you mentioned the existing bus shelter
Yes.
/ beehive
Right.
that's right there. You're keeping that?
Well, until you tell us not to.
how do we make, who has to tell them not to?
Staff, we looked at it, and my first blush was that it had to be there. And the second blush, when we investigated a bit, it was a decision to keep it there from us. It's not a requirement. It's not a historical building, I understand, although Michael is looking like maybe it was. But we talked to Carol Lee on it to see whether or not, we could go back, but we're checking on it to see.
Well, if we keep it, can we at least fix it?
I think it presents, right now, if we're okay, the whole area out there presents, we don't have a front door to the college. I mean, it's clear, there's no clear entryway. I mean, we have the roundabout, so you can kind of assume, but the monument sign has been pointed out by other consultants as small and difficult to see. So I think something could happen out there that's really much more, dramatic may be the wrong word, but appropriate is probably good.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to rebuild that somewhere else then, take it apart, like the bridge, and
Yeah,
Michael said.
piece by
right,
piece.
storage yard.
I would say too, just as a final thought, and maybe you could show a longer shot of this. When we started looking at this, this whole area, and then I compared the PAC area, previously. I mean, this is the same kind of projects. The PAC area was just desolate and far away from anything, and it felt completely removed. This has that feel, because we're just not populated over here. So I think as we start to envision it and populate a little bit, get it lit, get those connections with students, and especially with the green belt and the vine trail, which are connecting here to this thing, it'll start to feel like a more vibrant, unlonely, safer spot, if you will, because I can kind of hear those pieces.
One of the, if I could ask a question, one of the things we'd like some feedback on is we present this idea of these study rooms on the ends of both buildings, facing out towards the highway, and with some glass exposure. So at night, it would be lit up, they'd have activity, and it seems that kind of would help again with the front door. There's some signage work to be done, but is that good idea, bad idea?
I think that's a much better idea than blank walls.
Right, right.
Concrete,
Right.
massive wall.
Right.
What's
Yeah.
it going to do to our energy cost? I'm kidding.
That's what I was wondering too.
And to my question too about the security of it and how, I mean, I get the entrance, but how are we preventing others from coming in through the backside from the highway in areas where we do have some of those
It's gonna be gated.
camps now?
Yeah, gates.
Well,
I've
It's gonna
tried to
be
avoid
secured.
saying walls at
Right.
this point,
right.
but what kind of fences are they? Like, how does that tie in with the design of the building, and how do we protect it from the vulnerable areas?
Well, the idea, again, with these bridges would also create, a version of a wall that would connect the buildings, and of course, the buildings themselves, create a wall so that you end up with these safe spaces, and the only way to access it really is through the security entrance here on the kind of the front door, if you will. That's in the multiple buildings, that's easy to do to create a secure outdoor space. In the dorm building, because of the way the site plan is, the secure space is actually in the building as opposed to out of the building. We have the ability on this side to create, a walled area here for outdoor space that would be a small area that would be secure for the residents here, and by creating its own garden wall, if you will. So there's a small spot here, but we have I feel pretty good about the ability to control this, and we can go back and look at additional connection here to get a more of a controlled outdoor space that's safe, and this will be lit as well, with landscape lighting.
Kind of go back to that, and this is my last one. When you were just going with the wall, is
Here?
that an area, the last slide that you were just on? I think.
Dorm? Yeah, sorry. Here?
But like
In
I'm
here?
pointing at it like you can see it from here.
Yeah.
But could it be like a amphitheater? Is there like the possibility of like a wall, but having a stage where we have some kind of outdoor venue for the students, or is that?
Well, there is a grade difference there. The grade falls away down to the, that creek area. And so it could very well be terraced and, so that it could be a sitting wall and kind of a small stage, if you will, at the bottom. So that's not a bad idea to create outdoor space and use the natural grade to kind of capture it. So.
Ties it in with the Performing Arts Center, too.
We also talked about, I forgot what you call them, but security cards, key cards, this whole project, right?
Yeah. Don't, all the standard today is all the rooms have electronic locks, so there's no more keys in apartments or dorms. So you can't get into the building without your, electronic key. So we know who comes and who goes, and you can't get into the unit, without your key. So it's well tracked, and so we kind of know, or at least we know which key fob is coming and going.
Would we have backup generators for when the electricity's out?
Yeah, I think there's a run on generators up here. Right. Yeah, good point. Yeah. Very good point.
Thank you very much.
Yes, wonderful.
So if you feel like we're going the right direction, the next 30 days is going to be putting architecture on these, costing them out, and trying to come back to you with some financial models. As I said, it's given the holidays, it's going to be tough, and your meeting is early December. So we're going to do our best to try to hit that, but we may be at your first meeting in January if that's okay. We've talked to staff about that.
I mean, it doesn't seem just like on this project, but the city in general with the parking that they require for buildings overall in the city, but I'd like to see it with less parking and more open space if it's possible. I mean, or usable areas, but they have strict standards on parking. But
Well,
I mean,
Well,
not saying.
we can have that conversation with the city, and the way the parking field's laid out here, if they would allow us to have less parking so we could, cut this in half, we then take this large area here around, we already have some open space here we're going to be able to use and just make it larger and create more of a park there for the residents. So if we can shrink it down based on our city discussions, we'd like to, and everything we shrink down, we'll just pick up more park area.
So, finally, David, I mean, some people here at the table or in the audience or on campus have been through major remodels, home building, and some major projects, right? So as we move forward, I guess I'm wanting to ensure that there's lots of room for conversation about, the final details, the final layout, those kinds of things. Maybe you can address it just a bit. Maybe I did already, but.
Yeah. Well, for sure. So the way the process will work is we'll go away and put some initial, architecture on here and price it out. And that first step for you is just because what we owe you is a financial model that tells you what the rents will be to develop this. So again, we're going to hurry to try to do that in December. It may be January, but to bring that back to you, because that's a question we don't have an answer to yet. Now, and that's going to take a lot of assumptions. But once you give us the green light and we get then moving into actual doing real drawings, and then that's when we're going to get in the detail. And we'll be working with staff and as staff wants us back here in front of the board to have you giving us feedback on, will the city let us have less parking and more park? Should we, one of the things we talked to staff about is there's a space on the plan that we could actually create a roof deck on the roof that is enclosed, and that could, so there's extra things that we can do that could spice the price if we can afford it. And every time you add some cost, it impacts the rent. So what we're going to do is to try to show you where those dials are and have you help us turn those. Whether we want more amenities and believe we can afford a little more rents to support those, or we want less amenities and keep the rents lower. And so those are the dials that we will be turning together once we get to kind of the green light to go to the next phase. And all of you will be involved in all those steps. So we wouldn't go away and come back with a finished product. It's going to be a conversation.
Good job. Thank you. It's exciting to see something starting.
Yes, so are we.
Thank you.
Just tailing this away, generally, I'm on the Amola Corridor Work Group tomorrow for a couple hours, which is that right out there at front. So it'll be, are you going as well, Michael, or just you know about it?
No,
or-
I know about
Yeah,
it.
okay.
Outstanding.
Yeah, so I'll be able to kind of factor in what they're thinking about and make sure that, you know, we're at least at the table and considering this.
All right. We're moving on to item 8, reports. 8.1, Academic Senate Report. Dr. Eileen Tejada.
Good evening, board members, President Kraft, and esteemed colleagues. My report tonight includes several items. I would like to express my appreciation and gratitude to Board President Mr. Kyle Iverson, President Kraft, and Mr. Bob Parker for attending the Napa Valley College Academic Senate business meeting on Tuesday to address the concerns of faculty about the housing development project revealed in the survey. As we agreed in the Academic Senate business meeting, I look forward to another opportunity for the discussion that began at that meeting to continue. So I really appreciate your opening the discussion and the exchange that we had. Thank you so very much. We continue to remain in conversation about the VPAA hire, and the IEPI grant and some other issues. And I think that I appreciate modeling remaining in conversation and having open lines of communication. So for that, I am also very grateful. At the October 22nd Napa Valley College Senate business meeting, the Academic Senate passed the purpose and powers of the Napa Valley College Academic Senate resolution. The reason for proposing this resolution was to affirm the primacy of the work of the Napa Valley College Academic Senate in academic and professional matters as mandated by law. There are some in our college community that felt uneasy about the Academic Senate putting forth a resolution. I want to be very clear. Resolutions are the medium used to communicate the position of the Academic Senate as a whole. From the Academic Senate of Community Colleges, of California Community Colleges, our state-level entity, to the local level, resolutions allow us to state our position as a collective. It is my hope that the Napa Valley College Board of Trustees does not misunderstand this resolution as anything other than the Napa Valley College Academic Senate affirming its position and authority as described in the California Ed Code and Title V. The Napa Valley College Academic Senate continues its commitment to working collaboratively with all its constituent groups to ensure our students' success. I would like to now enter that resolution into the record as part of my report. Whereas the California Education Code Section 70902B7 ensures the rights of academic senates to assume primary responsibility for making recommendations in the area of curriculum and academic standards. Whereas Title V, Section 53203 ensures the governing board shall adopt policies delegating authority and responsibility to its academic senate and adopts policies and procedures on academic and professional matters through collegial consultation with the academic senate, guarantees the academic senate the right to meet with or appear before the Board of Trustees, and ensures the academic senate may assume such responsibilities and perform such functions as may be delegated to it by the governing board. Whereas Title V, Section 53200 defines the Academic Senate as an organization whose primary function is to make recommendations to the administration of the college and to the governing board with respect to academic and professional matters defined as the 10+1. Whereas Title V, Section 53203 designates the Academic Senate authority to appoint faculty to college committees or other groups dealing with academic and professional matters after consultation with the CEO or designee. Be it resolved that the Napa Valley College Academic Senate affirms its legal place in the governance structure of Napa Valley College with respect to all academic and professional matters, and that these legal mandates differentiated from all other senates at Napa Valley College. Be it resolved that the Napa Valley College Academic Senate affirms its primacy in the development and implementation of all academic and professional matters as defined in the California Education Code and Title V. So in order to better understand the functions of the Academic Senate, I have been conducting Academic Senate 101 trainings for faculty and actually for anyone on campus that is interested in learning more about the Academic Senate. For the new faculty learning community, I've been providing a workshop strand that informs the new faculty about the purpose and functions of the Academic Senate, and I've also included in that strand accreditation and the process of accreditation. Let's see, to my trainings, I bring expertise and experience, about 30 years worth, since I have served on the State Academic Senate committees, and as a commissioner on the ACCJC, I served 2.5 terms, so 6.5 years. So I'm able to share this information from a context and lived experience that connects the State Academic Senate, the Chancellor's Office, accreditation, and how these policies interact at the local level. I think what I heard was we have a 70% new faculty. I think that's the percentage. And so we're trying to train faculty as well as to keep them informed as to the processes that we're engaging in. I think the next strand, which is probably next semester, the next workshop in the strand will be about our internal processes. And so, so there's that. Lastly, the Napa Valley College Senate Vice President, first Vice President, Dr. Jim McGowan, and the Academic Senate Administrative Assistant, Ms. Elizabeth Rivera, and myself attended the fall plenary session just this past week. I attended as a delegate, and after a 20-year hiatus, I returned to the State Academic Senate to serve on the Equity, Diversity, and Action Committee, and I was elected as the co-chair of the Latinx caucus at the state level. And I also attended as a delegate. So in response, so some of the things that are happening at the state level in terms of the Senate. In response to the student success data and the research on student success, the State Academic Senate has prioritized diversifying the faculty of the California community colleges and promoting equity for all students. We attended workshops that helped clarify and affirm the role and purpose of local senates in the areas of program review, integrated planning and budget, professional development, guided pathways, and district and college governance structures as related to faculty roles. I think I can speak for our team that attending the plenary session inspired and energized us to continue our work at Napa Valley College Academic Senate and to remain connected with the State Academic Senate as well. The priorities and the resolutions I have with me, they adopted an inclusivity statement that I understand other colleges in our system are adopting And so I have those, and I have the resolutions that passed. If I were to group them, I would say that there were some bylaws changes, is the first set, and then the inclusivity and equity resolutions having to deal with ensuring or affirming what the research shows in terms of diversifying the faculty to mirror the student population and how that connects to student success, as well as infusing equity and diversity throughout the guided pathways changes and program review. So I have that information, and I'll be sharing that with Robin, Dr. Warnall, as well as the leadership, the planning and budget leadership, and to get that information out to you all. So that is my report for tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eileen Tejada. Next is item 8.2, Administrative Confidential Senate Report.
Good evening, Board. I don't have a report per se, but I would like to, on behalf of the Administrative Senate, like to welcome Robin D'Arcangelo, Senior Dean of Student Affairs, to our group. Welcome as a new colleague, and we look forward to working with you closely. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next is 8.3, Associated Students in Napa Valley College Report. I do not see Christopher Pablo. Do you have a report for them? Did he pass them down?
We have an attachment on that.
On behalf of ASB, you may not, right? Do you have a report on behalf of ASB?
I do have some notes that you passed on to me. Yeah, so ASMVC had recently attended a conference. The California Community College Student Affairs Association held a conference in Sacramento, and members of the board were able to network with several other student government members from across the state. So that was a good opportunity for us to get some exposure and really connect to the different issues and successes that have been going on in other districts throughout California. So it looks like our advisor, Benjamin Quesada, as well as Christopher Sotelo, our ASMVC president, they had a presentation with the NVC Foundation to support funding a few students to attend the American Student Association of California Community Colleges in Washington, D.C. That is a trip that we, as a board, took last year, and it was very helpful in providing experience and training, advocating for issues for students across the nation. And so that is something that we requested some assistance so that we can continue that this year. And it looks like ASMVC is continuing to polish up their constitution and bylaws, and we will have an upcoming meeting to finalize what those may be. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Moving on to 8.4, Classified Association Report. Valerie Mole.
Thank you. That's working. First, I want to welcome Robin as well. It's really wonderful to be able to work with her again. As I was preparing for tonight's meeting, I was reviewing the October board meeting draft minutes, and I just want to say I am in total awe of what our students have been doing. The report was lengthy, it was comprehensive, and I think we could all learn something from them. They were just fabulous. So on behalf of the classified staff, I want to congratulate Christopher, I'm sorry he's not here, and Pablo, and ASNVC as a whole on the exceptional work they're doing as student leaders, not only at our campus, but in our community. I'm an alumna, so, I consider myself one of those students as well, way back when. I'd like to welcome new classified hires, Jennifer Aguilar as a counseling services technician, and Stephanie Liu as a DSPS specialist. Both are scheduled to begin on Friday the 15th. We're looking forward to future hires that are out there being recruited, future classified hires, that is. This past Tuesday, our union and our Senate held a joint meeting, which we have rarely done in our knowledge, and it was quite productive. On the union side, we had some very lengthy and robust discussions about benefits, both bargain benefits and supplementals that are available to our members, and it was very, very productive. And then for the Senate side, Marty can elaborate on that.
Okay. Yeah. We had a nice turnout regardless of the fire for the Halloween turnout, and it was nice to have an assistance by DOS, because they provided some of the prizes for the costumes, and yeah, and then we talked a little bit about welcoming you guys to our classified joint Christmas holiday gathering, I'm sorry. And we're looking at teaming up with Dr. Tennyson there. She's got a program with the toy drive. We also have, Ben does some program with the Angel Tree program. So we want to sit there and be part of that. And I thought it was a lot of fun to actually collaborate with the students, and remember that, sometimes life can be a little bit simpler if you are a little bit more childlike, so make sure you watch Elf. And then our head chef, Elena, next week is restaurant week. She said she wanted to make sure that I let you people know that please come down and check out the vocational program we got going up there. And I told her I'd invite you guys up there because we still have openings. So yeah, next week's going to be fun. And yeah, I think that rounds it up. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for yours, Marty. And for those listening online, that was our 8.5 classified Senate report. Next is 8.6 Faculty Association report. Do we have...
She's rescuing her phone at Apple.
Okay. Best of luck with that. Never a fun process. 8.7, this is Dr. Kraft, President's report.
Thank you. A couple things. I want to thank the Academic Senate for the invite. It's always good. I appreciate when I get to go to not only for the specific pieces, but just to kind of take the temperature of the Academy, of where we are, and stay in tune with it. I appreciate the resolution. I think it's spot on, and know that the administration here is foursquare behind 10+1 and the Academic Senate piece. We are moving forward, and I appreciate it, on two initiatives. One is the housing, and we're still working that out, and hopefully Catherine and I talked tonight about trying to schedule a forum or something in the beginning of December to kind of get this same thing that we did tonight out to a broader group of folks, so we can start to walk that through a little deeper, and then unpack, if you will, more opportunities for people just to understand what it is, where we can make an impact. And the second piece is the IEPI grant on training and development through HR, and I appreciate the Senate's inquiry in it. We'll try to clarify that, and I've got a meeting. I'm not sure we have one set, but we will, specifically on that. So thank you on all of those things. And Marty and Valerie, I missed the costume piece. I was out, but I heard great things. So thank you for all of that. A couple things. The election 2020, just at the beginning of mine, Board of Trustees, specifically Iverson and Dawn, trustees, but other folks have also talked to us about, could we not see if we can get a polling place on campus for the 2020? We're working forward with that. I think there are several veins of folks that have indicated to us that that it's looking good for us to do that, be a temporary polling place. As we know, the 18 through 21 percentage of voters who turn out is very low, as low as 4% in our last bond outage. So it's important, I think, to get the students here. And as I understand it this year, you guys can help me here, but I believe this year, for 2020, not only can you vote, but register as well that day. I believe that's the new law that's going into effect, right? If that's wrong, this was Bob Parker's. You can see him for any of those corrections.
That was actually true already.
Yeah,
That
right?
was- it
Is
was-
it?
yeah,
It's
it's
true
already
now. Okay, then that was Dr. Kraft's, yeah. Thank you for that. I'd like to call on Faye. We have, at the end of every board meeting, we have either future agenda item requests or staff board requests. Not all of those are scheduled really for agenda items. Some are best done in these kinds of reports. One that we did was kind of an update on sports teams. So we thought we would just hand it off to Faye to kind of review quickly. It's here written for you, but she's going to hit some of these highlights.
Thank you, Dr. Kraft. First of all, before I give this wonderful update on our athletics teams, I need to thank Senior Dean Bob Harris, right there, and Associate Dean Jerry Dunlap for their leadership in this area. We also have amazing coaches and faculty that support our wonderful student athletes. So yes, I am going to highlight a few things that are happening in these programs. I'd like to start with our men's and women's soccer team, all doing great things. The men's soccer team clinched their third straight Bay Valley Conference championship, and they're now headed to the state playoffs. And our women's soccer team, we're winding down. We're in the middle portion of the BVC standings. And I need to give a special shout out to our coach, Randy Simmons. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Bob? Was recently named the recipient of the News, which is our Napa Emergency Women's Services Female Coach of the Year at their annual Peace Awards. So that's pretty amazing. Our volleyball team, much better this year, and Sophia Green, one of our student athletes, was recently nominated for State Player of the Month. We have a full roster, and our recruiting efforts are in full force, and we actually have 3 commitments from local players for the next season. Our women's golf sent 3 student athletes to the NorCal Championship, with Jordan Lowe making it to the state championship next week, while Bailey, help me with the last name, Bob. Thank you. We'll go as a first alternate for Northern California. And then our men's and women's basketball teams are just starting. We will field a women's team this season, and we're really hoping to grow this program. We have a new coach, Paul DeBalt, and he's done an excellent job really trying to bring back to life our women's basketball team, which I'm so excited about. Sport of softball, we're on track for a team for our spring 2020 season. There are enough students in the preseason course to field a team, and we actually have many verbal commitments from students who weren't able to participate in the fall preseason activities, but will be able to participate in the spring. So we're excited about that. So there are many great things happening in athletics, and if you have questions, Bob can answer them.
I just want to give another shout out to Coach Rogelio and Coach Randy. I mean, they're out in the community and they're just very involved in fielding a good, solid team.
Absolutely, thank you.
Just kind of join in. I think we're a small college with a pretty big footprint for athletics. So, and Bob is a representative out there on the Bay Area. As well? Yeah,
on a statewide level, actually, I'm with the Management Council. But I would like to echo what Trustee Iverson said, because I received an email from a former colleague, graduate school friend, who works at Hartnell College, and noted that our men's team went down to participate. They helped clean up the field. They helped take care of things, and the head athletic trainer said he's never seen a visiting team do that. He goes, and we lost 4-1. So, I mean, we won, but we beat the home team 4-1. But he called out the men's team for being fabulous people and for helping do things going above and beyond that you don't normally see in an athletic team. So it was wonderful to hear.
Thank you. Finally, on my report is campus closures and the modified operations. Boy, we've all suffered in different ways from the PSPS, from PGE. I would say that we are in good shape in terms of our preparation for emergency closures. We have good materials. We've reviewed those. What we were not prepared for was that event. As a temporary kind of shutdown that may or may not happen, that affected differing constituencies. I reached out to our former retired police chief, Ken Arnold, who we contracted to come in and help beef up that section of our emergency guidelines and to work through. So he's met with many stakeholders around the college. He presented a draft to me for discussion today. Still have a few calls to make and a few more connections to make with folks, key leaders, and then it will end up back at cabinet to take a look at, back out to constituencies a little bit, and then we still have some questions on. What do we have questions on? We have questions on the procedures, the exact procedures, communication procedures, and how to reach people. We are addressing not being able to get to campus and how that works for individuals. So there's still some open questions there, but we're coming to a conclusion on it. I'm trying to get out ahead of this before we have another PSPS, and I'm hoping that we can. We should have it completed by the end of November and back to the board for a good solid look in December. And we will make the last round of constituencies, I think, here in the next couple weeks. That's it. Thank you.
And I mean, my sincere apologies, and I'm sure with the rest of the board on those that were affected with the last shutoffs. I mean, it's not a one-size-fits-all for closing the campus, but everybody, thanks for bearing with us. Next is consent calendar. We did have the removal of 9.6 and 9.9. 9.6 was the budget development values and assumptions, and 9.9 was the approval of agreement with Clark and Associates. With those removed,
Move approval.
I have a motion by trustee Baldini
I second.
and a second by trustee Sagira. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimous, Catherine. Next is item 10, academic affairs. 10.1, curriculum changes. This is for fall 2019. And what do we have presenting on this one?
None. I mean, if you want to, you just need a motion and a second.
Move to approve.
Motion by trustee Rios.
Second.
I have a second by trustee Baldini. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimous.
I do have just one question on the curriculum changes. On the viticulture side, on the, I don't know if that could be answered, online education, so how does that roll out to a student? I know it broadens or casts a broader net, if you will, but how does that, how's that in the Vineyard sort of experience translate into the online?
I think what you said at first, Michael, is absolutely true, that it is going to cast the net farther. I mean, we're going to get more students that might be taking some of these courses. I think it's a change that I think has been needed, and there's a lot of good changes that are happening in VWT, and I have Diana here, then she can address a few of the other things and the whys behind it, but including adding new courses, but then adding this distance ed modality to it that does open the door for more students and gives us an opportunity to do some of the work online that we can do, but then also with hybrid classes, having the students come to class. So it gives them, again, different kinds of options for some folks that can't get here for a fully face-to-face class. So, and Diana, if you want to add to that.
That's essentially what we're trying to do, is create some options. So one of the things we're doing with two of the ones that are more enology-based, so the winemaking classes, is the students can take two classes on the same night, and they'll alternate. So one night, this week it's this class, the next week it's the next class, the next week. So they can actually just commit one night away from work and family to come to campus, and then the rest of that content will be taught online. And those nights that they're on campus, they can do things like go out to the vineyard or go into the winery and show students real live examples of what they're learning in the lecture portion that's online. But it does provide more options for students to take our classes and increases access.
Outstanding. Well, I applaud the efforts of everyone that made it possible, and thank you for that.
I just one quick question. Sorry, Baldini, I saw her getting away from the podium. In terms of the VWT classes, and hopefully this question doesn't take us too far afield, but transferable classes for Davis, like have we made any? Because I know in the past that I had heard that a lot of our courses weren't transferable, or they weren't getting credit for them at Davis.
Well, there's different aspects of transferability. By the way, I know these are sunglasses. I'm not trying to look cool. There are prescription lenses, so I can't see your faces right now, so without them on. So that's why I'm putting them on and off. So you could be snarling. But so there are classes, we have classes that are transferable, like the units transfer and can be used as elective units at UCs, including UC Davis. There's a difference between our VWT program and UC Davis's. So our program is and part of the reason it's in career ed is it's while they're doing action research, so they're researching and experimenting while they're making wine and with the grapes in the vineyard. It's not a research-focused program. It is a making good wine and growing the best grapes possible program. And so it's a very different type of program. And so the program itself is looking at which colleges we can align to. And hopefully within the next year, you'll see some degrees and degree changes and additions coming because we are looking at kind of the portability and advanced studies for our students in that program. So there is some look at that. And Davis has a fabulous program, but it's a little bit more philosophical and research as opposed to how do we make exceptional wine, and that's what we are looking at here.
So that would be like a Fresno State or a Poly or San Luis Obispo, or the transferability of our courses to those universities?
Yeah, a little bit more in that direction. But it's also looking at different aspects that our students can do with that, with their coursework from our college, which it really is. It's much more focused on getting to good product, whether it's grapes or wine.
Or wine. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, we're going to jump to item 14. This is appointment to Napa Valley College Foundation Board and Dr. Kraft.
Yeah, interesting item. The board has not taken this up in a few years, to my knowledge. In a review of the bylaws of the Napa Valley College Foundation, one of their requirements is that this board appoint a person to the Napa Valley College Foundation Board. You can't be one of you, as per the bylaws, but what we're requesting, this is an information item for you to think about your channels of communication, the folks that you might recommend that from the community in your walk of life that might enjoy representing your interests and the college's interests on the Napa Valley College Foundation and be a full member. This is a full membership. Once you appoint that person, they are a member of that board. They don't have to be approved or accepted by that board, although I'm sure they'll be welcomed. And so tonight is this information item, and I would like you to forward any names that you think might be appropriate to either Catherine or myself in the office. we can vet out a little bit. If we don't receive any, then we'll just continue it on. If it's something that starts to just make sense, falls out, then we would bring that person back to you either in December or some subsequent month for confirmation here, and then they would take their seat on the board.
Is there a particular skill set or something that is missing on the board, the current board, that we're interested in trying to fill?
Wealth. Yeah.
I don't know any of those people.
Yeah. No, I mean, the board is, the Napa Valley College Board can go up to, I'll just say that they, I believe they can go up to 22 or 3 folks as ordinary. They're down around 16, 17, 18, somewhere in there. So I think a good community member who's kind of plugged in. The mostly skill set is just being what we would say a community college person. Somebody that really loves what we're doing, is focused on helping students out. More of a good spokesperson that you would love to see. Right? Other questions? Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Sure, everyone has someone in mind.
Yes.
All right. Next is hold on. We are going to. These are item 15, board policy review and adoption. This is first reading for repeal board policies H2260, H2311, H2405, H2410, H2411, H4570. Sorry. Has everyone? This is information discussion, right?
Yeah, I
This
think
is
either
not an
Catherine
action.
can clue you in on these, but why these are here for us.
They are here. Human Resources requested that they be repealed once and for all. We have approved procedures that replace them, and it's important to simply get these off the books so there's no more confusion. Nobody can come running in with these papers saying, hey, but wait a minute. So we just want to make them go away. And we do repeal policies from time to time. Normally when the new ones are approved, but there was a bit of a time lag here.
So we can't take action on it.
No, it's just first
so-
read.
This is a first read, and it'll come back next month for approval.
Any discussion on them? Questions? Comments? Okay. We are moving on to, gosh, it's already that time at board reports. All right.
Not yet. No, we've got one more policy to look at.
BP.
Our first reading of board policy BP 3910.
Yes, if I may. This came up with regard to the request on plastic bottles. So we pulled the policy, which is currently, the last it was revised was in 2013. It was actually new in 2013. So it's due for a review. We brought it to Council of Presidents and to Cabinet, and both groups agreed unanimously that no change was required to this board policy. We do intend to work on procedures for you. And so that's where it stands. So
Let me add a little bit to that. There was kind of broad discussion, if you remember, that started obliquely with water bottles and then ended up with, can we change the face of the the kingdom here? My whole thought process was let's take a look at the policy itself. It's a pretty good policy and it's broad. What we don't have is kind of the attending, as Catherine said, the APs. And there's a lot of APs that would be inclusive of plastic bottles, all the way down to even potentially maybe even the kind of, stewardship we would do in terms of, I'm trying to think, contracting with outside companies or, there's a lot there. This policy can't really handle that load. So it's a good broad policy. We'll come in through first the Council of Presidents with APs. There'll be a lot of discussion on those, I think, and then we'll start to bring them to you. You're not going to approve them, but you will see them here, and we'll make sure that, the conversation is more broad on these since you had all this interest itself. You don't have to agree with this recommendation. I mean, so I want to make sure that, you're the board. It's up to you to appreciate where we are, or to say, no, we'd like staff to come back. So, in all fairness, that's what we're doing here.
I think we could easily get lost in this very quickly, but
I just had a quick question. If we choose to accept the recommendation that no changes are made, and it's an existing policy, does it come back again? I mean, it would just go away, right?
it's a first reading though.
We would, if you're, this is the first read. If there are no changes made, I would bring it back and you would adopt it, or just call it, it would just be called reviewed, and we made no changes. And then the next review would be in 4 years, or unless we needed to make changes. So generally policies, we like to just have our eyeballs on them every 4 years, even if there are no changes.
It doesn't prevent us from taking particular topics and looking at them.
Absolutely not. And as we start to come in with our conversations about the APs, and we're not hitting, I don't know, I don't think smoking is going to end up in this because we have a separate policy. But whatever, we're not hitting the kind of things that you want, then propose it up again, a policy, and we'll take it through the process. And so this may, right now, this feels right. And it certainly did to the, to the council presidents who kind of all weighed in, right? Marty was there and Bob was there as well. And I don't know if you have any comments on it? No? Good.
This allows flexibility of the AP.
Mm-hmm.
So that's key.
Yeah.
I don't want to go out on a limb, but with regard to resource development, allocation, and use, where does it, like, in terms of, and if I'm going down a rabbit hole, stop me, like cups and lids and stuff at the coffee shop,
Yeah.
straws, things like that.
Well, the way that it reads right now, it would be staff's discretion, and we'll just use Bob's discretion, right? Administrative services to say, and I could have fun here, but I won't, Bob. It would be Bob's discretion to look at vendors, look at their price category, and not necessarily say, this one is more green than this product, right? It's not that prescriptive, but I think this certainly gives him the direction, all right, to move there. I don't know if that's.
Well, is that going to be addressed in the administrative policies? I mean, because I understand we can't put detail in here because it's kind of outside of our, don't buy these cups, and that's outside of our purview. But we'll get to see the APs that you come up with and say, we don't think this is going in the right direction.
You could. You don't get to approve the APs,
Right.
but you could respond to the APs by reintroducing board policy language. And I think that just goes to boards. Some boards up and down the state are really green. I mean, so they would be, this isn't even remotely cut it, right? I mean, they're coming at you. I think it's a good conversation. We'll have plenty. I mean, this isn't your last shot.
Yeah, I looked at this and I said, well, okay, but so what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Everybody thinks it's a great policy, but so what? It doesn't do anything. But once we see your APs, our position, or we can express whether we think you're going in the right direction or not.
It's very wide. I mean, I guess you do recognize the value of best environmental and organizational practice not to have water bottles in here, right? So it was fine. But you can tuck almost anything under this thing.
Yeah.
It's so broad. So we really need to, I think, just punk away at all the different aspects. And it may be that our AP is going to be so long that it's likely we're going to come back to you with maybe some subset policies that really need to be in play.
For example, if we saw your APs and they didn't address plastic, let's just say, we could put a policy in that said, we would like to see the college use less plastic.
Exactly.
You know, or
right.
reduce our plastic by a certain percentage or something.
Yeah. Yeah, you could.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So, not taking a straw, but we could bring this back as a second reading, saying reviewed and.
Yeah, it's staff's recommendation that you do take it a second reading, and we're going to continue to work on AP through the Council of Presidents.
All right.
Can I just say one thing? I just want to show you at the last meeting, we talked about board policies being moved to board docs, so they are now there. You would click right here. I'm afraid if I do it now, what'll happen? There you are. There's your board policy manual, and here's the procedures, same chapters, and you can search them, put in your keywords up here. This, I included one item here, so it kind of describes what board policy is, and if you click on it, it goes a little deeper. And there was a question about, let's see if I can find one. So if you, nope, that's not a good one. Here's one. So you'll see that the codes, these all link to the laws that are associated with the policy. We're still trying to figure out how to get these to cross-reference. So that just went live today, and I haven't had a chance to call her back.
Great.
Thank you. Well, don't thank me. Actually, I worked with a student assistant. I told him he's getting a big bonus this year.
It's excellent.
Okay.
I do want to give Catherine a shout out because she's spent quite a bit of time on the
I have.
VPs and organizing this and
One of my favorite
making it all come together. So
Thank
you, Catherine.
Okay, sorry.
It seems like something small, but it's not.
It was a lot of work.
All right, now we're moving to item 16, board reports. Standing committee and other appointment reports. DAS is coming up. VWT, did you guys meet?
We're meeting this month or next month?
I'm looking, yeah.
Really?
I don't know, yeah.
It's on your sheet.
This
I'm
sheet?
looking.
Yes.
DAS is December 10th, all right? Is that what you said? Double check.
All right, here I have it. So DAS is December 10th. We did change that one, so thank you. VWT, next meeting is December 3rd.
Okay.
Legislative Affairs Committee, that's kind of, well, we're still on,
Yeah, I don't think we have said anything. We were just kind of waiting
I've
it
got a
out.
little blurb that Holly gave me, so I can share.
Great.
blurb away.
Blurb away. So Governor Newsom signed nearly 300 bills into law that made changes to Ed Code specifically. Two of them were the AB 30 and AB 612, which we had supported. And then the only other item is that the legislature is going to return from recess in January, and at that time we will be reconvening our committee either in January or February.
Excellent blurbing, thank you. All right, Audit and Finance Committee, next meeting is December 2nd. Real property, nothing there. McPherson Distinguished Teaching. Do you have a report on real property?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't think you
I know.
really-
Jeez.
Man.
Oh.
All right.
And I have an audit and finance report too, so I can.
Oh, well, then go ahead.
Let's
Go
in
ahead.
order. Let's go in order.
Okay. We met yesterday, so we do have another meeting. Let's see, yesterday we reviewed the values and assumptions, is that the right word? And which was going to be on the agenda tonight, but it was pulled so that it could go back on the recommendation of the committee led by our student trustee requesting that we add some language about technology into that. So, and that didn't seem that it was going to have any negative effect on the timeline. So that should be coming back to the board in December. And then the other thing that we did was look very briefly at the responses to the RFP for the new auditor. And we basically just looked at their names. And so that meeting in December is going to be actually inviting them to come here so they can do presentations and Q&A, and then we'll be making a recommendation to award that contract.
Very important information, though, along with the names was their fees.
Yes, it was interesting.
Very interesting.
And I apologize for cutting off real property. I assumed, so I'm sorry with the housing update, so.
Well, we did meet, and we actually did have an update on the housing, and you got a lot more this evening, so we'll skip that. But an item that we did discuss at the meeting that I think is important for the board to participate in. The committee heard about Mount Veeder Farm and just kind of got a little update on that and a little history on how different groups ask about using that property. Currently, I forget the name, Dr. Kraft.
Innermost House.
Innermost House, which Dr. Kraft is on the board, requested or inquired about using that for a retreat.
Day discussion area. Or something.
Yeah, and so there are other groups that in the past have asked about using it, and I think the committee kind of agreed that we should ask Dr. Kraft to start putting that the farm kind of on the front burner in planning to get that into the cycle, because there are some improvements that have to be made for people to be able to use that if we're going to start to allow. And I think we thought it's a good idea to have people use that, especially groups like Innermost House and others that have asked. But it does need some improvement, so that obviously implies some financial investment and some work out there. So the committee thought that we should direct Ron and the administration to put that into the planning process so that we can understand what needs to be done and to make that a usable property.
So that sounds good. Again, not taking action, but does the board feel like that's something that we should obviously revisit and bring back?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah, I think there's a couple options. We're continuing to work on the district and campus master plan, and also, and as part of that, and the FMP as well, some updates, some project updates for the future, some modifications and repair. All of those things will kind of show up as we kind of move through. Mount Veeder will certainly be on that agenda list, and we'll update you on that.
How does that, in terms of insurance and coverage over that, if we're having folks up there, is there?
Well, I think, Bob can probably answer, but, if it's a college event, our garage policy will generally cover us.
Would cover, yes, that's true. So anything that, it is a district property, and so any use of that property which would fall under either Civic Center Act use of the property or a district-sponsored use of the property would be covered under our policy.
And is it typical for the college to, like many other groups, agencies, when their properties are used, to require the user to get their own policy?
Yeah.
So
I don't know what it is, but is it still $1 million, or is it more or less?
It depends on the use, and so standard use would be $1 million. If it's, use of the ball fields, it would typically be $2 million for that. But yes, we would require that an outside user show proof of insurance and have a rider that shows us as a named coverage for that.
That's a good call. We probably should review it in terms of thinking about Mount Veeder or other properties like that. It'd be interesting, and we'll do that. Yeah.
I have a question. Does it have a no trespassing sign on it, the property?
I don't know.
The reason I'm asking is we've been talking about a field trip up to the property, and it's not materializing. So I want to know if I can take a drive up there and just see this infamous property.
Yes. Well, there's a couple things. We currently have a caretaker on property, and we can arrange, something for you. Let me think about it for a minute. So your no trespassing was, can you go?
Yeah, exactly.
I get it. Yeah,
And
we'll
is-
work it out.
And the next
I will work it
question
out
is
for you.
Paul G. going to shoot me off the property?
Yeah, no, we'll work it out for you. Absolutely. We have had over the years, I think Michael was probably the last, was there a full board meeting up there or just a
We
subcommittee?
had the entire board up there.
Yeah.
Yes. So it
I mean,
was-
it's not yet in that condition.
That was a long
but,
time ago.
Yeah, it was a while.
They
But
carried me on a
it might be
backpack.
something that we want to do on a special, very special, right, Saturday, right?
Saturday?
I don't know.
Oh, that'd be-
Yeah. We'll certainly put it out there if you'd like, but, okay.
This whole conversation kind of ties into our next item, 16.2, which is the future agenda item requests. And Catherine, can you open that? Because this has been cleaned up, and I've been bouncing around an idea with Dr. Kraft and Catherine about, so some of these are pressing agenda items, and some could be covered in, like, tonight with the athletics report and Dr. Kraft's president's report. So I just wanted to get a little direction from the board if that is something that you guys would like to see, if you're all right with that. So, example, a field trip up to Bumpy Camp.
Should that be on here?
Doesn't need to be agendized, but what's another one? You can-
Well, I think, if I can, yeah, sometimes it's a good idea, and it's a cross between, the thought process is a cross between a staff report and really an agenda item. So if we can conduct it in a staff report, and it's appropriate, then we do, right? So,
Like the environmental policy, for example.
yes, exactly. It's going to come back to you, but we really kind of dealt with environmental policy, even though it was an agenda kind of item, through our regular policy review tonight. So in my world, we've done that, right? Rather than come back at it again. We'll come back at it with APs. I'm trying to think of some other, I guess we did the sports update this way, rather than have Bob do the agenda item and come in like they did a couple years ago or a year ago. Faye did.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And some things, whatever I send you all, individually or as a group, is also a public doc, even though it's intended for you, so it's written in a more casual way or sometimes, a more direct way. And I'll include things in there that are probably not of interest to the general community, but you have more insight into those things. So we're going to try to use all three of those, and then in our meeting sessions where I meet with you, is also cover those things. And the goal here was not to get this,
Giant list.
endless list of agenda items we really just can't get to, and they just keep piling up on you. So that's the process that we talk through.
Yeah, so smoking policy is a big one, obviously. Some could argue with vaping and everything else, I guess, but campus technology, that's something that's big and encompassing. So,
And that one is coming in December, right? 19th.
but still, obviously, let's keep it going, but. Exactly.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm really happy about doing, items like this. I thought tonight was nice to have the athletic report on the president's report. Sometimes I feel that we get in, I don't want to say a tricky situation, but doing everything in the president's report because we don't know necessarily what's going to be on the president's report.
Yeah.
Sometimes we know, right when the agenda comes out. Sometimes we know this morning when a report's uploaded. So I just want to be thoughtful in terms of moving those items to a president's report, that at least there's some sort of agendizing of the topic, so we know what's going to be discussed and the public knows what's going to be discussed.
It's a really good point, very fair. And I think in terms of, if we're going to cover, I'm looking at Holly and Catherine, if we're going to cover it in the president's report, we'll make sure that gets published out earlier, So, community members or you all will know that it's going to happen there.
Yeah, or if details are still waiting
So
to be
get it.
formalized, maybe
Yeah.
perhaps in that, the cover page.
Yeah,
In that
exactly.
section, just hitting on those topics.
It's a
there.
great
And-
call. Perfect, yeah.
So is the environmental policy being taken off because it was addressed through the board policy tonight, or?
Yeah.
Okay, because that January 19th is throwing me, the status. Because shouldn't it be the 20, January 20? Okay, thank you, because I was thinking maybe I missed something. Okay, but it'll come back and, yeah, perfect. So it'll be taken off that list, correct? Okay.
December.
This was a way for us to, I think whistleblower kind of showed up this too. It went out of order. So in essence, I think by Raphael saying, can we look at this? We skip to environmental policy rather than kind of waiting its turn. So, and that's very appropriate. It's a good thing. Yeah.
But if you wanted to bring back plastics on
Yeah.
campus.
No, are we really talking about that?
I'll wait until CPAPs.
That's right, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you did. You have.
Yes.
All right. Well, trustee and board chair reports. Let's start with our student trustee, Pablo.
Yeah, so I've just been, I guess, more involved with my other organizations for their club chapters here. So SACNAS is a big one. That's the Society for the Advancement of Chicanos and Native Americans in Science. So with them, I've been reaching out to other chapters, namely Stanford and UC Santa Cruz, to really establish a connection, bridging our two chapters, exchanging information on how to collaborate with the community, how to engage the youth within our community to really focus and pursue a career within science. And so I think that's been really helpful and beneficial for our chapter here in Napa, just to get more promotion and building relationships with peers, future people of the tech world. So that was been really, really fun. I've been part of the Audit and Finance Committee and the Real Property Committee. I had those two meetings this past month. And as I mentioned earlier, as part of Chris's report, I attended the Student Leadership Conference in Sacramento. And so we're about 6 months in now as a board for the Associated Students, and it's looking really good. I mean, we're going to be reviewing our goals for the year to finish off the term, and I am very hopeful for these next 6 months. That's it.
Thank you, Pablo. Trustee Baldini.
No report.
Trustee Baker.
I realized after I went home that I neglected to mention in last month's report that I attended the.
We don't go backwards.
The Rios has spoken.
I went to the IIPI Partnership Resource Professional Development Team meeting, just kind of representing the board. So I'm not quite certain what the next step is for that, but I assume I'll be invited to participate.
Churchill Manor.
And then, let's see, I went to the legislative breakfast and went and saw the Belle of Amherst, which was amazing. Hoping to see Matilda this weekend if tickets are still available. And we will be watching Elf at our house. That's standard for while we're putting up the Christmas tree.
Thank you, Trustee Dodd.
Thank you very much for the athletics report tonight. That was very encouraging to see how all the teams are doing. In particular, soccer. I'd love to see more announcements on the email just about those games. I don't think I don't know if they've been posted, especially since they're going to be in the state playoffs. That would be cool. Kind of foster a little school pride, spirit. So I appreciate what's going on with female softball and basketball teams. They're going to be fielding the teams today. I actually was on the website this morning. I didn't see a roster, so I'm like very, very encouraged by those developments. I want to compliment the administration in terms of the last PSPS event. I noticed in terms of communication and Holly's emails, really a dramatic difference between kind of the first round. And I thought the first round was quite good, and I appreciated it. It was clear to me, at least from a kind of a third-party position, that everyone listened to folks that were speaking about potential issues at the last hearing. So that was, I think, really nice and explaining. What I liked about it is just you're explaining your thought process and how you're going about making this decision. It was really, really appreciated that transparency. Was also at the Ledge Breakfast. I think that is really a fantastic event for the college, and do so well. And I love, seeing NVC there, associate student, just totally knocking it out, networking, talking with different folks, like what are you doing? Talking about opportunities, internships, what are your next steps, what are your goals? It was really positive and really encouraging.
That's great.
Thank you. Trustee Rios?
No report.
Trustee Goff?
All right. First off, I did go to the legislative breakfast as well, and it was really wonderful. And I want to thank Dr. Kraft. After that, I actually received a tour of the police academy and the library services, and that was really impressive. It's amazing how far this campus has come since I was a student here, so it was pretty nice. I need to thank Faye and Diana, who rescheduled a meeting for our staff. We had over a dozen teachers and staff members attend the meeting to find out about the possibility or the application process to be adjunct faculty here if CCAP classes emerge on our campus. So it was really exciting. People are really enthusiastic and hopeful and inspired about getting you guys all down there and becoming really a part of that campus in American Canyon. So it was really nice to see. I also need to thank Dr. Sherry Tennyson. She held a job fair on our campus yesterday. Again, both of these meetings, the job fair and the CCAP meeting, were postponed. The first power outage. And thank God the second power outage came before they happened. So we had a job fair yesterday. She had about 15 employers there. The first hour was strictly for our students, which was really nice. And then it was open to the public for the second hour. And I got a lot of really positive feedback. So I really appreciate the college providing our students with that opportunity and our community with that opportunity. And I won't make Matilda, but I'm really looking forward to it. I have my tickets for Charlie Brown Christmas, so I'm looking forward to that. It's coming. It's coming. Thank you.
Trustee Sugiura?
Oh, something just very small and short. Legislative breakfast. Agree with everybody that it's a wonderful event, and thoroughly enjoyed all the presentations, especially the lively one from Barbara Nemko, and the importance of all community colleges and how great ours is doing. So I'm wearing a pin of my nephew who passed, and it's pertinent because he was a graduate of the Napa Valley College Cooking School. He went on to Chicago on his internship, and he worked at a Michelin-starred restaurant, and he was in charge, executive chef for special events. So, again, wonderful, Napa Valley. So, college.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you guys. Great reports, and thank you for this evening. I don't have a report. I do want to mention December 4th, our Napa Valley College Foundation holiday party at Churchill Manor.
Right.
I
think that's 5 o'clock. I have a couple other things too, but I think it's 5 o'clock that evening.
Okay.
And the board is all invited.
December 7th, police graduation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Same time.
I didn't get anything.
You haven't
either.
gotten those? Yeah. We'll make sure.
Well, they're coming.
I'm at least looking at mine. Holly, any update, you think? Yeah? You could double check, but if I can take the moment, we've alluded to it a little bit, and I do want to call out Holly Dawson, PIO. I mean, a lot of the things that you're seeing on the PSPS, the power piece, a lot of the groundwork for the Ledge Breakfast is really due to, you can see, it's visible, having a really wonderful PIO on board. So thank you, Holly, for that work. You're really remarkable. It's good. I also want to thank Patty and Annie for sitting in today. They both have done a song they're going to do for us, I think, right? Yeah, but thank you. You're always admirable and ready to answer questions, if there are. So thank you again for sitting through this tonight.
Yes, thank you for visiting,
Yeah.
Patty.
They're going to get an early quit tonight. Maybe you should keep them.
Yeah, let's keep it going.
So what was the name of the song?
And Oscar's great. I love Oscar, but it's nice to see you here too. And also, before we close this evening, I mean, we've had a lot of loss of life. I mean, with Rafael and Rosara's nephew, and also the school shooting in Southern California. But this evening, before I want to adjourn this meeting, the moment of silence for Doris Zielinski, she helped with our health occupations programs, and she one of the first deans out there, right, Bob? Did a lot in growing that, and there is a service for her this Sunday, and it's going to be at Treadway and Wigger at 1 p.m. And there was a link. Did everyone see the link that was put together for her? So I want to adjourn this evening in memory of Doris Zielinski and everything that she did for health occupation. So a moment of silence, please. Thank you, guys.